this video we are going to learn Docker architecture. Why we need to learn this Docker architecture means many beginners what they used to do, they will memorize these commands, but they don't know what is happening when they are running this particular command inside the Docker. In this video we are going to cover these things like what happens when you run the Docker commands, how Docker desktop work on a window, what is the Docker client, what is the Docker engine, Docker image container do, and what is this Docker Hub? So when we know the architecture in real-time scenarios, when we are troubleshooting some issue, if we don't know what is happening inside this, we are only will guess. Instead of that, what we'll do, if we know the architecture, it will be more easy to detect the error. So this is a high level diagram for a Docker, how the Docker is operating. And we learn each and everything whatever we are seeing this image, like this is you are sending request to client, it is sending to Docker engine, how it is creating the Docker image, Docker container, everything. You can see in this diagram we are interacting with the Docker client, like whatever we are sending any commands like Docker ps, Docker image, anything. So we are interacting with this Docker client, and the Docker client job is simple, like it will receive your command whatever the operation you want to do, and it will transfer to the Docker engine. If we take a real life analogy, assume that you visited to a restaurant, so you want food, but you are not directly sending the request to the chef. Instead of that, what you are doing, you are calling a waiter is taking some notes, and the notes is going to the kitchen where they are preparing the food. So to interact with the chef or with the kitchen, you are interacting with waiter, not interacting, like not you are directly placing order by the chef. So same like this is the Docker engine, this is the Docker client. You are interacting with the Docker client, and Docker client is taking request to the chef. So what we get to know about the Docker client is this is the part where we are interacting, and it receive the commands and send it to the Docker engine. Now come to the Docker engine. So from the name only we can say like what is the work of this engine. It is actually the heart of a Docker, and it is responsible for all the actual works like building the images, turning the container, stopping the container, removing container, managing and volumes and networks. How the work you are giving to a waiter, how whatever you want, that is done by the chef, the food done by the chef, same like Docker engine, every work has been done by the Docker engine. And next, the Docker image and the Docker container, which is already we have discussed in the video number 1. And just like I am just giving one overview for this, this is an image of this is an image or a template, like class and object in Java. Class is a blueprint of the object, same like Docker images are a blueprint of the containers. This will contain something like operating system file, Java, Spring Boot application, what are the library dependencies, configuration and startup commands, everything we are going to include inside this image. An image cannot execute by itself because this is just a blueprint, so how it will execute, and it is only the template. If you see real time logic also, I've already given to you. And Docker container, this is the instance, this is a real instance running inside the Docker. So this instance is created from this Docker image. This is one example like Spring Boot application. So Docker run Spring Boot. This is an image we have created. How to create image and other thing we'll discuss later. First of all, this is Just for example, this is the creating and this is a image. Assume that this image we have created by giving some configuration and all. Then we'll run this Spring Boot. So it will create a container. Then this is the command to run the image. Docker run the image name. So it will the Docker will create a container and the container will run. If we run this again, so it will create new container. As we have already discussed, one image can have multiple container. Now we'll see like whatever how when we are interacting. Assume that we docker one command docker run something image. Instead of image we will give any app, Spring app. Docker run Spring app. So whenever we are hitting this command, what is happening internally we'll see now. One more thing I forget to tell you about the Docker Hub. Then we'll take a full flow. So what is a Docker Hub? From where the images are coming. Like you can think like this is a hub where images used to store. So the images are coming from the Docker Hub. Like think that Docker Hub like a GitHub, where in GitHub how our all the projects codes are there. Same thing, Docker Hub images are there. It will store the images like MySQL, Redis, Postgres, SQL, whatever we will give it will store, or else it will store from. One more thing I forget to tell about the Docker Hub. Docker Hub nothing just a hub, just like a GitHub for the code. So Docker Hub is for the images. It will store the images like whatever we used to use MySQL, Redis, PostgreSQL. Every images will be we can grab it from the Docker Hub. So when we execute something like Docker run Nginx. So when we are running this Nginx, what the Docker will do? It will check the Nginx is available or not. Like this is already available in local or not. If it is not available, if it is available, it will run it. If it is not available, it will download from the Docker Hub. And automatic download is called a pull. What is a pull in Docker means? Whenever we are running some commands, whenever we are running images, whenever we give a command to run the images, the Docker will check if the images is available locally, it will run. If it is not locally, it will download from Docker Hub. So this process of downloading from the Docker Hub automatically, it will call as a pull. Now let's see the full flow of a command. Docker run, you hit a command of Docker run Nginx. So what it will do? This is we are interacting. We are giving the command. So first of all, it will go to the Docker client, right? Docker client. And the Docker client, we know it will send the request to the Docker engine. The engine will check whether the Nginx is already exist in the local or not. Docker engine having two scenario. If the image already exists in the local, if it is not exist in the local, if it is existing in the local, it will run that image directly. And if it not exist in the command, it will pull it from Docker Hub, as we have already discussed. From there it will pull the image. Docker engine will check if it is there, it will run. If it is not there, what it will do? It will try to pull it from Docker Hub. When it will successfully pull the image, then it will create a container from that image. and it will start running. One more thing, we are installing the Docker desktop. So where the Docker desktop is storing, because we are using a Windows, there is something we need to understand. On Linux, Docker engine runs directly in operating system. On Windows, what it will do, Docker engine run inside a lightweight Linux. That means you are using a Linux operating system to run the Docker engine inside your Windows operating system. It will look like this. Windows will Docker desktop will connect with the Linux environment, and the Linux environment gives us the access to give gives the access for the Docker engine. So this is where WSL2 is recommended during desktop installation. If you are getting error, please reinstall that one and check WSL2 is configured or not. Whenever we are use this command, what will happen? The Docker client will send to the Docker engine, read the Docker file. This Docker file I will tell you later. This is where we are giving all the information to build an images. So this Docker file, then read this Docker file, then it will build the image and it will store locally. So that's why whenever we are hitting the run command, Docker run something something, first of all it will give the prioritize to the local system, like whatever the images are there, it will look for that. If it is not available, then it will go and search for the Docker hub.